Welcome to the Greysheet Market Report. Today is July 17 on Thursday, and just give you a quick market report. It's been a week or two since I did such a thing. Normally I would have Patrick here with me, and as you know, we've been doing these live, but we're still playing around with all the different all the different ways we do these reports, and live doesn't seem to be pulling greater than non-live. So I think we're going to go back and just start doing regular reports, which is a lot easier for a busy day when I've got phone calls and meetings and things like that, to sit down and record some quick thoughts while I have a short window, and then and then we'll just publish it when we can and get some feedback in. As you know, we always publish in response to comments and the feedback here on YouTube. So thank you for joining us today, joining me specifically. And I don't know, I'm wearing my fun Postal Service t-shirt today. I don't know if you can see the whole thing, but I bought this at the Smithsonian National Postal Museum a few weeks ago. I thought it was really cool. It's like a retro shirt for U.S. mail, which is, I don't know, soon to be quite a relic, I think, in this universe. I'm a former stamp collector, as many people know, no longer a stamp collector, although I do have a nice collection of encased postage, and I'm waiting for one of the major grading services to jump in and start authenticating before I would sell, because people don't realize how great encased postage is and how rare it is to find a really nice one. So I can almost never add anything to my collection, because usually when the encased postage comes out, when you see it in an auction, it's got damage, it's ugly, and the mica is broken. That's the clear part. So anyway, it's just I'm waiting on that. But that's the extent of my stamp collecting, which I think is a crossover to coins and stamps, tokens, things like that. More about that some other time. Anyway, real quick, I'm frustrated as heck this morning because I had an incredible Red Book podcast yesterday with Jeff Garrett, Fred Weinberg, and John Sullivan. So the four of us got together, we did a podcast, and we were discussing error coins. That's what those guys do, right? Fred Weinberg is a retired, the expert on error coins as far as the last 50 years, as far as I know. There's a few other people like Arnie Margolis or Dave Kammeyer at NGC who are very well known in errors, but Fred is the godfather, and then John Sullivan is sort of the next generation error specialist, while Dave Kammeyer still is considered to be a strong authenticator at NGC. And we had a great discussion, and I don't know what happened, but this is the first time we had this in a podcast where literally Fred dropped off the whole podcast. So one of the cameras, we're all in different places, and one of the cameras didn't pick up Fred, even though we had a spirited conversation. We could see it on the screen the whole time, and then Fred's gone. So I don't know what we're going to do. That's like, what's worse when you do something great and then you have to do it again, and it just sucks the life out of you. So I'm learning, about this podcasting business and going through the frustrations and trying to do things. And this is all, I would say, first generation for me, trying to get into this podcasting. And I think it's a great. I tell everybody who will listen that podcasting, if you own a business, if you run a business like CDN Publishing or Whitman, or if you own a tire shop down the street, I think you really need to be out there doing some kind of communication with your audience, so that the audience knows who you are and what you do. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So, and again, please place your comments. Any comments questions you place below, I'll always respond to them. And I just want to tell you about a few of the things I'm working on in the next week. So number one, this is right about now is about the 10th anniversary since I acquired with an investor group, CDN Publishing, the family, from the family that owned the gray sheet and the blue sheet and green sheet and things like that, out of Torrance, California. I flew out there about 10 years ago today and negotiated with them. It was just a really interesting experience. And so rather than discuss that today, Patrick is coming to town. He still lives in California, and he is the only person who is actually with the company since the day that we acquired it. He was there for a couple of years before, and he was their star editor and pricing manager. So we kept Patrick. No one else stayed. We moved the whole thing to Virginia, and he's still here. And so he's coming on Monday, and we're going to have a great conversation with him and Billy, who was hired about, a month later to be our office manager, and she's just been a star. So I hope you'll join us and listen to that podcast where we'll work on it a little bit and try and do some stitching and show some pictures of things. But I just have on my desk some really cool things, like like when we acquired the company, the original, this is, people don't remember, but the original gray sheets always had, they came kind of like photocopied on gray paper, and then you had to get a binder because we would send out, like, I don't know, 7 different publications, and every time you'd get one, you'd have to figure out where it goes in your binder and things like that. And it wasn't until about 5 years later that we created the first magazine, and we said, the heck with all that nonsense. It's too hard for us to produce, and we're always on deadline every week. I want to be on deadline once a month. And then we worked on the digital side of things so that the pricing could be updated every minute of every day, but published once a month. So that's where we are today. Stay tuned for that podcast next week. What else can I tell you? There's interesting rumors swirling around the coin business that there will be a new mint director announced in the short time. This is a complicated process, and I think it requires Senate approval. But the great news is this person is an industry insider who is also, well versed in politics and things like that. So it's the best of all worlds for us. I couldn't be more excited about all of it. It's a great time if this all goes through, which I have every reason to believe. And so that's really exciting. And hopefully we'll have a great relationship with the mint going forward on things like that. And I'm hoping to have a podcast with the interim mint director, Christy McNally. She is on my radar for later this month. So we continue to build our relationship with the U.S. Mint, and we're looking forward to working with them, because the 250th anniversary next year is just a monumental event, and I think it could be as big as the bicentennial quarters in 1976, bicentennial coinage. The statehood quarter program in 1999 was enormous, and Whitman sits squarely at the crossroads of those kinds of issues, because we make albums, and we update Redbook in time, and we do all kinds of things, and we are part of this ecosystem, and we are just like really excited to support in any which way. This is really good stuff. We're also opening a gallery in the DC region at Whitman, because we think this is going to become, I've always assumed this is the epicenter of numismatics in the country, not for trading. We know the coin shows are the big thing for trading, and Heritage is in Dallas, and Stax is in Stax and PCGS are in Southern California, and NGC's in South Florida. Virginia Beach seems to be becoming a more power center with cat grading here, and there's at least 3 or 4 other coin dealers here in Virginia Beach. David Lawrence, Harry Leibstein, things like that. But the big deal is that I think DC is the epicenter, and we also have a strong relationship here at Whitman with the National Numismatic Collection at the Smithsonian, and we do everything we can do, and we will continue to grow that, with the National Numismatic Collection, because I think there's no greater treasure here for us as numismatists than that. So that, let's see, the market report today. So the market today is very strong. I think Patrick and I reported that a couple of weeks ago. We said the market's strong. There was a summer fun show in Orlando last week, and everyone that I've spoken to told me that the show was stronger and busier than they expected. So everyone expected it to be good. So the bar was already high, and then people said that show was better than I expected. The grading services, I talked to Justin over at PCGS. He said they had, he's the vice president of PCGS. He said they had a tremendous amount of submissions at the show, and they were very surprised. I'm sure that is true of the other 2 grading services. I don't have numbers for you or anything like that, but when people are submitting coins, people are selling coins and things like that. So all that is good and very exciting. And gold and silver, they're just kind of strong and getting stronger, and they'll go up, they go down a little bit, but they're showing strength. So the strength over time is confidence to the consumer. Nobody wants to pay $3,300 for an ounce of gold, but that's the number, and so therefore you just react accordingly as a consumer. This is what you can feel good about it, because I think there's just as good a chance that gold becomes 4,000 as gold stays around 3,300. I don't see a whole lot of risk. I'm not an economist. I'm not a gold speculator, so don't quote me on any of that. But I would say the odds of gold going to 4,000 versus gold going to 2,500, I'll take the 4,000 all day long. The only gold I really own is in ETFs. I don't like to have physical gold too much personally because where do I transact it and things like that. But you can buy GLD stock, and as a coin collector, you can, your collection, if you buy gold coins, if you collect Morgan dollars, you're just going to do well owning these coins. They just keep going up, and they're sort of wreaking havoc on our algorithms because, better date Barber dimes or better date Mercury dimes, like a 30S Mercury dime in VG, is suddenly, because that was worth, I don't know, let's say $4 or $5, now silver's worth greater than the better date. So we have to adjust these things, and I'm having to kind of constantly keep up with how better date coinage of a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, how to keep up with that vis-a-vis the common date. We don't want to say a 30S Mercury dime is worth the same as a 1945S or something like that. It's just not the same. So there's a lot to be done in this sort of matter, and but the market is strong. I met with a dealer yesterday, had lunch with a dealer who deals in the very high end, and his confidence in this market is super high. He comes at this with a lot of experience in different industry and different business success, and he's just really bullish on the value of rare coins. We had Kenny Duncan Jr. on our show, I don't know, about a month ago on one of our podcasts, and Kenny was, feeling this need to bring in the sports card, the well-heeled sports card collectors and speculators and things like that in those areas, and say, why don't you understand how much more conservative and good numismatics are to these other hobbies, right? I mean, and so he's right about that, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with great sports cards and really this action. There's so much action going on in sports cards, whether it's LeBron James or other great athletes and the card values and so on. But it's really volatile. It really moves around a lot based on sentiments and news releases, and these people are much more prolific on social media than coin dealers are. So coins are just like the slow and steady tortoise, and compared to these other markets. And if you don't have the temperament for such a thing, for such a volatile market, coins is great. And of course you can learn about history with coins. You can pick your area. You can say, I love Buffalo nickels because I collected them when I was a kid, I remember them. Or you can collect Washington quarters because you remember them as a kid, statehood quarters. Whatever you want to collect, there's somewhere for you, and it's rewarding. And then you can always change. You can say, I started with statehood quarters because I'm younger and I loved them when I was a kid and I did it with my father, but now I want to collect standing liberty quarters and Barber quarters and things like that. And we're seeing this kind of happening all the time. And the market, to most of our amazement, I mean, us older timers in this hobby who've been in it for decades, is we thought it would all taper off. We thought we would lose to these more exciting, collectibles and things like that. But what we're seeing is the opposite. We're seeing real resilience, and this is a large part due to the strength of the independent grading services. Who. Everybody has an opinion about this, that, and the other with them, but you have a great economy in our business based on the three major grading services, major auction companies that transact a good part of the volume of the high-end business and give transparency because they give data to us. They give a lot of transparency to the market so that consumers can feel very good about what they're buying and selling, and this isn't really true in other collectibles. So that's the strength of numismatics. I'll just keep repeating it over and over and over in these podcasts. I think that's the only way I can keep driving that home, is why it's such a good business. What else? A&A show is still coming up. I think we're about a month away from the A&A show kicking off, and I have, as I've said before, I'm not attending this year. It's in Oklahoma City. And when I saw that on the calendar, I thought, and this is 6 months, a year ago, I said, this might be the first one I skip. Why? Oklahoma City is not easy for me to get to. August always comes at a time of year when I could use a break. I've been busy traveling. I've done, a bunch of shows up until this point in the year. And A&A show to me is so stretched out that it's like a 6-day event. You can't really dip in for an hour of one. You kind of have to give it all. You have to go all in. You go in on a Tuesday, you leave on a Friday or Saturday, and it's just a lot. And I think that it's a little late this year. I think attendance by collectors is going to be less because school is starting for a lot of people. Some dealers are not going, but because the market is so good, I've heard yesterday that it's sold, that the divorce floor is sold out. So kudos to them, and I'm sure it'll be well attended. I'm sure anybody who goes to the show will be happy they went. It's just I'm going to take a break this time and sit this one out. And I can't tell you how many meetings I've told people. I said I'm just not going to be able to make that one. More and more you'll start seeing me at the Baltimore Whitman Expo because that's our flagship product, and I will attend Fun in Central States and an occasional A&A maybe in a Berlin show. But there's if you're interested in going and learning, it's a kind of a very cool event to go to. The A&A, the World Mints show up at that show to the most extent here in the United States. They do it really the most at Berlin in January every year, but they will come. What frustrates me, frankly, about the World Mints coming to A&A every year in the summer is they come. Like last year they came, it was in Chicago, and they come to the show, but they didn't come to the show. So they set up a booth. So you see a big fancy booth for I don't know, the Prague Mint or whoever mint, the British Royal Mint. I don't know, all these mints that set up. I'm not sure exactly who sets up, but they're setting up there. But they've just put salespeople there, and I want to see, I want to talk to some of the more important people at these mints and just chat with them about business and things. But they don't come to the show. They stayed instead of, the show, it was at Rosemont, which is near the O'Hare Airport. So that's a good 15 miles from downtown Chicago. And these European, Asian, South American mints show up, and they take a hotel room at the lake 15 miles away. Traffic is heinous. And they have their meetings and their little secret meetings where they have secret meetings with buyers and potential buyers and sellers. Like, hey, we're coming out with these 14 coins. You've seen some of them. We sell some of them here on like CIT. We had that beautiful Washington, 3-ounce silver and things like that. There are some wonderful coins, but they prefer not to do that at the show location. So by doing that offsite, they're not really integrated with our market. All these other world mints have this real dilemma of how do we get into the American market, but we don't want to really get into the American market. We don't want to do the heavy lifting of getting in. We just want it to work. We want to find a distributor here in the United States, like an AppMax, like Asset Marketing, things like that. These bigger companies that do a tremendous marketing job and getting these things all sold, but there's not necessarily demand being pulled from the customer. So the customer doesn't know that the British Royal Mint issued a silver sovereign coin unless I tell them what I'm trying to sell, a silver sovereign, or AppMax or somebody else. So the burden becomes on the seller. And, it's sort of, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to sell, boxes of macaroni and cheese and your Kraft Foods, you run ads on TV saying, you really want our Kraft macaroni and cheese. And then you go to the supermarket and you say, hey guys, where can I find, I just want the Kraft, or I want the Annie's, or whatever brand. And you've got an opinion going in there. But these world mints don't want to go that route. They don't want to do the hard work of communicating to the consumer that I've seen to say, here's why you need, here's why you love the silver sovereign. Here's the connection between that and American coinage. Here is why this is great. Here's why the new maple leaf from Canada has a special privy mark, which a collector of American in the United States would be interested in. But what they're doing is they're kind of forcing the burden on the seller, on their distributor, and then if it doesn't work, which I'd say mostly doesn't work. I mean, this is a world where bullion has gotten higher and higher, and collectors people who just want physical bullion coinage are kind of just going to go with whatever the standard is. Like if the American Eagle, they're just going to start with the American Eagle, and maybe they'll buy a maple leaf. But they're not really, maybe, and of kookaburras and silver, or, the established brands. But if you have a new brand and you want to sell it, you have to communicate. Or if you have a new beautiful design, you have to communicate it. And this is the purpose of the award ceremonies, the Coin of the Year, which I think is happening. There's going to be, that's good. Coin of the Year is a fantastic concept. I've heard they're revitalizing that, and they're having a ceremony at the show at the ANA. Those are the ways that you get consumers excited about that. Other ways to get consumers excited is to have work with Whitman, for example, and have us publish books to also generate excitement. Here's the story behind the 30th anniversary of the Kookaburra. I'm just making that up. Or something. All of a sudden, everyone's like, "Wow, that's really cool." Or Libertads. What does it mean to collect Libertads? Here's a book about that. And then all of a sudden, instead of having 20,000 collectors of Libertads, you might have 50,000 collectors of Libertads. This is the bridge that I've been trying to cross with these mints, and I am find when they go to the ANA show that they really don't go to the ANA show, and they're having their secret meetings and they're not really present. I don't know if they're just they like coming to the United States for their summer vacation and this is part of the budget, so they just do it. But I haven't yet seen the shift, and I feel like it's got to happen soon, where they really say to myself and other industry leaders, what do we need to do to be a part of your industry? Like, we want to reach the American coin collector consumer. And no arrogance about this, the American coin collector consumer is the number one coin collector consumer in the world. I mean, I know that there's some great collector communities, especially in Asia, right? I mean, Japan is supposed to be incredibly strong. Chinese market's great. Real coin collectors. So, not talking about reaching them. I couldn't tell you how to reach Japanese coin collectors. That's not my area. But I can tell you, if you want to reach American coin collectors, you got to go through Greysheet and Whitman to some degree. I mean, if you're not talking to us, then I don't know how you're going to reach that person. But anyway, that's my rant a little bit about why these shows are not as efficient as they should be, and I'm not sure exactly how to skin that cat, as it were. But I know the ANA show is going to be good. It's just going to be like it always is. It's going to be a little too long, and it's going to kind of be, to my mind, just kind of draws you out. And then, so it, 3 days before the show, a whole week at the show, 3 days after the show, you're recovering. It kind of just kills the whole end of the summer at that point. And I'm just going to try a different experiment with it this year. What else? Redbook reprint. I have really exciting news. We printed about 200,000 Redbooks, which is the standard number that we sold last year. And remember, this is only my first real edition of the Redbook. The 2025 cover edition was in process when I acquired Whitman. So I didn't have anything really to say about that book. 2026 comes along, and Jeff and I said, Jeff, we've got to change this book. I can't sit and look at the same Red Book every year that, everybody's looking at the same Red Book. So and to Jeff's credit, he's just an amazingly adaptable guy and friendly, and knows more about, U.S. coins than almost anybody I know in the business. And he's been around, he's seen it all. And he said, John, I'm all in. Let's do it. Let's change this Red Book. And so we have many more ideas, but we did a big, huge change in 26, as you know, 6x9. We made it a physically larger size. We added our catalog numbers. We replaced all the pricing with CPG, which is our, based on Greysheet collector pricing. We fixed things that had needed to be fixed for a long time, like Go-Breck dollars were a mess. Cal Gold was a mess. There were just, even colonial coinage really needed to be fixed. We did a number of those things, and I still, of course, nothing's perfect, right? I mean, here's my master copy, and these are all the feedbacks that I've gotten. Change this on page 83. You missed this little snippet of information on page 87, so on. And the good news is, we are already oversold basically on the Red Book. I mean, they sell I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I can't believe it. I'm still in shock about this company and this wonderful book, and the predecessors that come before me and made this and kept this amazing thing. And I feel very, I feel the burden of doing it right. And we are doing it right. But the best news is the consumer, the market said, we agree. This was a good upgrade, right? This was a good upgrade. It was much needed, and it's oversold. So we're going back, and we'll probably print about 40,000 more, which is, amazing for our advertisers, right? Because they get 40,000 copies free. We're not, we don't go back to them and do anything like that. And so the word, how do you get the word out to 240,000 people? World Mints, are you listening? This is how you reach 250,000 people who buy U.S. coins that you might want to buy, Perth Mint coinage or South African Mint coinage or anything, right? Philharmonics, name a country. You should be marketing in the Red Book and other places to tell the consumer, hey, I know you love U.S. coins, but we got something else to tell you about, and everybody in this country has heritage from different places, so there's connections to everything. So anyway, we are going back and printing 40,000 more, and it'll be a true second printing. So what'll happen is we're going to fix a bunch of the little things that we were told about. So it won't be exactly the same book. So if you're a collector, kind of a collector oriented, you'll want the second printing as well, we hope. The whole product is inexpensive. It's under $20 basically, and it's just lovely in every which way, and we're excited. I couldn't tell you, nothing feels better than to go back for a second printing, right? The worst feeling in my business is you printed too many books and they didn't sell, and the best feeling is the exact opposite. So that's everything that I wanted to communicate today. Stay tuned. Again, next week, Patrick and Billy and I are going to do like a 10th anniversary podcast where we just brag on some of the things we did, some of the fails. I'll try to just tell it all that, we make mistakes all the time. Fire, ready, aim kind of concept of, do it, see how we can fix it and whatever. One of my favorite fails was this one, which was we printed for 3 months. This is a very rare item. For 3 months only, we went from the weekly newsletter, which was the 8.5 by 11 that we mailed a whole bunch of things every single week, and then I decided let's just do one print, and I went to the local newspaper printing plant that my mother worked at for 35 years, and I said, hey, can you print a tabloid version of this magazine, because I need all these wide columns for pricing and things like that. And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. This is what it looked like, right? This is kind of what we're looking at. It was in July, I want to say May, June, July of 2018 is the 3 issues or something. If I am guessing, this definitely was July for one of them. And it was I loved it. Except for I had one big problem. 2 big problems. One problem was the newsprint gets on your fingers immediately. Like, if you're buying coins and the newsprint is your hands are black in like 10 minutes. And the other problem is people use these Greysheet. If you're a reader of Greysheet or our magazines, you're always flipping through these things. They just kind of tear, and newsprint doesn't lend itself to multiple readings. When you get a newspaper, if you remember reading an actual newspaper, it falls apart after the first or second reading. You throw it away, you recycle it. It doesn't lend itself to a month on your desk looking up the prices of all these coins. So we had massive complaints, and the complaint line went through the roof. Billy, dealt with it. She's just been a trooper. Patrick and I have put her through everything, and she just, she keeps coming back and, with a smile on her face. So starting, I think, in around August of 2018 to now present is a monthly color magazine that you're familiar with, and that's been the standard ever since. But it's been quite a ride, and we're looking forward to talking about it a little bit, and hopefully you'll enjoy. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's going to be about 100 degrees today here in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So stay cool, everybody. Stay dry. I know there's a lot of flooding and concerns that we have for all our loved ones in different places. So have a wonderful weekend and enjoy your family. And if you enjoy these podcasts and you're not subscribed, I hope you will subscribe. So please press that little button at the bottom. We gain value with subscribers, and then we can get more important people like mint directors and presidents of grading companies. All of these people will join us more often the more subscribers we have. So this is our currency, as it were. It doesn't cost you a penny, and it helps us out. So have a great day.